Good morning, sports fans. You're listening to 96.9 FM WHYR-LP Baton Rouge Community Radio.
This is Eric Hatfield along with Coach Perry Daniels, and we are here to bring you the latest, the greatest, the best, and the most entertaining in high school, college, and professional sports. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports. Just so fresh, so clean. Good morning, Baton Rouge. It is Saturday morning. It is nice and warm outside. If you want to jump in the pool, go to the beach, do something outside that does not require clothes, it's a good day to do it.
Going to the beach? What beach is that in Louisiana?
Oh, well, I guess those words might have come across in the wrong order.
Oh, okay.
You're listening to Louisiana All American Sports. I'm Eric Hatfield.
And I'm Coach Perry Daniels.
Normally I say we have a whole day chock full of sports, a week chock full of sports, but actually that's simply not true anymore, as the NBA Finals are over, and we are definitely heading into the dog days of the sports cycle, much like we are heading into the dog days of summer.
Hey man, but we scoured the wherever we could, and we found enough sports to fill an hour for our people.
Oh yeah, we keep it hot and spicy. Fire like kaya. We don't just sit back there and read a bunch of nonsense off of the newspaper and stuff. We keep it fresh. We keep it interesting for you. We got plenty of topics related to sports, and sports is a lot like life, and so there'll be a lot for you to connect with. And speaking of connecting, please give us a call at area code 225-343-9927. Area code 225-343-9927 to get in on the conversation with Coach Perry Daniels and I. So, Coach Perry Daniels and me, actually. All right, so grammar police there. So look, let's talk about what we do have left of the high volume, high TV rating sports cycle, and that was the NBA Finals, which came to a conclusion last Sunday night in Game 5 in San Antonio at the AT&T Center. The Miami Heat were shot down, the two-time defending champions. Their reign was ended in 5 games in not so dramatic fashion, frankly, as the San Antonio Spurs absolutely pounded them in Game 5 and very convincingly took home their 5th NBA championship in 16 seasons, 5 championships since 1999.
That is awesome, man. Big props to the San Antonio Spurs organization. From where we sit, they look like a first-class organization from top to bottom, Eric.
Oh, I can't, they are a well-oiled machine. They really are. You know what they are? They are much more likable, much more empathizable, I know it's not a word, version of the New England Patriots. They're kind of a team. They're just a cold, efficient machine, keeps on winning.
I don't like Bill Belichick.
I don't like him, and I don't like Tom Brady, although I've come to respect Brady over the years. But no, I can't stand the hoodie. But I do admire what they've done. I mean, they put together, they have a well-oiled machine, and so do the San Antonio Spurs, though it's one that every man, I think, can relate to with good, wood-chopping lunch pail guys like Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili and now Kawhi Leonard. They just go to work, they get the job done, and that's really what they did in Game 5 to the Miami Heat, Perry.
Hey, man, if it wasn't for the Game 1 fiasco, man, you would say they had a perfect series. But, the AC in Game 1, right, you do have to kind of hold that against the organization.
Yeah, that's there's no way to get around that. You can't just blow that one under the rug, as the AC was not blowing either. Game 5, I guess we could talk about the final game real quick. Miami, they looked like a team with their backs against the wall. LeBron James looked like a man possessed in that first quarter. The problem is that possession did not carry over after the first quarter. The Heat jumped out to a 22-6 lead, and I think to many people, myself included, I'm thinking, all right, this looks like the team I expected to see, and then San Antonio and Popovich just turned it on, and really the Heat looked like a 1-on-5 game out there to me.
It did, man, and We've spoken about this, but the Miami Heat, you cannot wait until the NBA Finals to change who you are.
Right.
And the Miami Heat played isolation basketball for most of the season. And you can get away with that in the NBA Eastern Conference.
Right.
Because they're so much more talented than all the other teams.
Right.
However, when you play against a team-oriented basketball organization such as the San Antonio Spurs, that's not going to work. Isolation basketball is not going to work.
No.
And they found out.
And team-oriented and with a lot of depth, too. And that's really one of the keys, to this series. you look at San Antonio, and you always say, what's the first thing you hear when you hear San Antonio? They're old. They're old. I mean, we've heard that. I've said before, I've been hearing they're old for the last 6-7 years,
Right.
and they still keep on winning. Well, part of that is Popovich has the sense to know that Father Time is undefeated, so you reduce the minutes of those older but still Hall of Fame skilled level players, and you bring in this depth off the bench, and you get your Boris Diaws and your Tiago Splitters, and I'm not even going to start on Kawhi Leonard, who's become a superstar.
The little guard from Australia.
Patty Mills,
Man.
who's a free agent after this year, incidentally.
Man, he just rose his stock tremendously.
Oh, yeah. Brother's getting paid either way. And knowing the way the Spurs do it, much like the Patriots, they probably will let somebody else pay them and find another Patty Mills, because that's what they do well.
Right. I think, Eric, though, we're going to see a lot more of this model, now that this Popovich model, where veteran teams are going to start limiting their minutes of their veterans during the regular season.
They absolutely should. And I think that Pat Riley's a very, very smart man. I've lost count of the NBA championships he's been a part of. But he, in so much, said so during one of his press conferences. He said, I believe it was either Thursday or Friday morning, I forget, but he said that we do not need to rebuild. We do need to retool, and they do. He said, Eric Spoelstra needs to retool, LeBron James. He pointed out the four key people, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, all need to retool, but we do not need to rebuild. And you saw it. I mean, look, their big three were gassed down the stretch. Dwayne Wade's had lingering health problems for 2 consecutive seasons, though he's managed to stay in the lineup. Spoelstra's got to retool the way he uses those guys with their precious, precious minutes as they get older.
Yeah.
And they've got to find some more depth, some guys that can bring it off the bench, a lot like San Antonio. I can't read Pat Riley's mind, but he's not a fool, and game recognizes game.
That's right, man. And Pat Riley's a champion in himself. He sat on the bench as a coach. He knows what it takes to win a championship.
Yeah.
They need defense, though, Eric. They need to get better defensively.
Yeah, that defense is, they need to get better in one part of the defense, because their ball defense, in other words, their ability to stop the ball, force turnovers, make people pay in transition up until Game 3 of this series, I'd say even including Game 3, because they rallied with that transition defense, I think has been excellent. The problem is once you get to the paint, once that ball gets into the paint, there's no rim protector at all. They have no true center. They've moved Chris Bosh there a few times just to stop the bleeding, but that's not what he does. Joel Anthony was gone. He was as close as it came, and he was mediocre at best. They have got to get a center, even if it's a guy who's not an offensive player, just somebody to get in the middle who can disrupt and not give up easy buckets in the paint.
That's right. Now, things may get worse, man, because as I'm researching yesterday, I hear that, the Houston Rockets, who have a boatload of money, and they want someone that can assist them. They want a third wheel to their two-man duel in Houston so that they can compete for the championship. So the NBA really doesn't want that to happen, because the conferences are already unbalanced. The Western Conference is a much better conference than the East. But the 3 people that are on the Houston Rockets target list are, 1, LeBron James.
Right, which is not going to happen, but I understand why.
2, Carmelo Anthony.
I get that, and that's actually not a bad fit there.
And the 3rd one is Chris Bosh.
That's what I thought you were going to say, and that's... The latter 2 are possibilities, but especially that 3rd one, because I think Chris Bosh, they have the money there. Carmelo Anthony can still get max money, and I think when Phil Jackson just says, here you go, I'm just going to leave this there, and you decide what to do with it, and he starts getting other offers that are way below that, he's going to have some hard decisions to make. But Chris Bosh's market value is right around that 17, 18 million, 19 million that Daryl Morey can afford to spend before the back end of Jeremy Lin's contract blows up. And Daryl Morey's not been afraid to make bold moves and get the people he wants. They are real hungry, and that could happen. So Miami's got a lot on their plate.
One thing about Carmelo, New York has a high tax bracket.
True.
Texas doesn't at all.
That's true. No state income tax in Texas. So you're looking at about a net effect. You have city tax and state tax in New York. So we're looking at probably a net effect of, let's say, 8, 9, 10, let's say 10%. Let's throw that out there, right? So you got to figure, you got to come out of, your $20 million in Texas is worth $22 million in New York. So if they're going to offer him a $24 million a year contract, 25, all the Rockets would have to do is come in around 20, maybe a little higher, and then hopefully the allure of winning sooner would attract Carmelo. And I agree with you, Perry. It's a possibility. It's going to be a very interesting summer between that and the NBA draft coming up next week. With more talent than we've seen probably since 2003. You know, with LeBron and Wade and Bosh and all them.
And with a couple of Louisiana guys projected to go in the second round, Johnny O'Brien going anywhere from early second round to mid-second round. And Markel Brown
from Oklahoma State University,
projected to go mid to lower second round. So
a lot of talent there, a lot of talent. You know, just to, I guess we want to bring back a guest we had last week who wanted to talk about the Spurs for a couple of minutes. I asked him to talk about the Spurs for a couple of minutes. And he was kind enough to give me his time. That was Mike Taylor from Ticket 760 in San Antonio. Really great. When it comes to Spurs basketball, this guy's got, you can see his enthusiasm as a local, and he's got some great insight on the team. And he made a couple of interesting points. We'll put the full interview on YouTube. We'll put a link after the show, but I wanted to give you some highlights, rather. All righty. Well, look, thanks again for chit-chatting with us. There's been a lot going on. Let's talk about the finale first, I guess. The start of Game 5, of course. The Heat got out to a pretty fast start. Just from your vantage point, were you a little concerned when they got off to that 22-6 run?
Not really. You know, the Spurs are used to getting out to big leads and blowing them. It's weird. Pop always says that the hardest thing to do is to get a big lead early in a game against a team that's good, because there's just going to be a natural letdown. And there's nowhere to go but down when you have a big lead early in the game, and there's still so much time to play. I figured at some point they'd start playing, and chip away at the lead. So wasn't all that nervous about it. But had that carried to the halftime, it would have been different. But once they started chipping away early in the second quarter, whatever strangeness we might have felt early on went away.
What did you think about that posterization of Chris Bosh?
Couldn't believe it, man. Even Manu was laughing after, saying he had no idea how he did that. Just don't ever expect that to happen again. There's no way they wanted to go back to Miami and then, God forbid, risk a Game 7, even though Game 7 would have been here. Mm-hmm. They came out ready to win Game 5. They didn't want anything to do with the Game 6.
Did anyone really expect 3 games that were that one-sided to close out the series?
Heck no. We were all worried after Miami won Game 2 down here. And the goal was just to get a split. So after they won Game 3, I just figured Miami would play its best ball. San Antonio would have a natural letdown because they won Game 3. But, God, man, the decision to put Boris Diaw into the starting 5 just blew the doors off of Miami. Miami was a worn-out team.
I'll bet it was. You stole a little, or you led into my next question. I was going to say, describe the parade. What was it like?
Oh, it was terrific, man. It was great. We had about 150,000 people downtown, and it was so cool because there's a lot of people that were, you know, I'm 39, so I remember the championships, but there were some young guys, you know, that were 18, 19 years old 7 years ago. Right. Or even guys in their mid-20s 7 years ago, and now you got guys that are 30, 31. It's been a long time, and I think Gen Xers, my age, in our 30s, right, you take that stuff for granted when they're winning every year, you go to the finals every year, then all of a sudden you skip 7 years, and you get wives, and you get kids, and you live, right, and you appreciate this, man, and they may not ever do this again, so it really was about not just celebrating a championship this year, that was about celebrating this organization with a 38-year-old franchise player, and several other guys that are in their twilight, man, and this kid Kawhi Leonard just came in and lit a fire under this team. But it wasn't just about this championship, like I said. That was a chance that was like a family reunion the other day, and that was kind of a chance to celebrate just in case this is it. That was a celebration of all 5 of the championships. They had a bunch of the old players that came out there, and you know they had a big pep rally at the Alamo Dome that night that also involved a bunch of former players, and this was about the celebration of an organization more than it was just one single championship. Like a summit of basketball heaven, as you put it last week. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And it was... Duncan's, in all probability, going to be back next year. Parker is still very good. What do you think the chances are of a repeat? Well, I think they're going to be favored. I mean, the West is a beast, and the Clippers will be better. They play together for a couple of years, and they'll have more chemistry, and Doc will be in his second year after coming in and kind of laying down how he does things. Right. So the Clippers will be back and be good again. Oklahoma City's not going anywhere. They'll have the same team back. And so the Beast would be a bear, but I mean, the West would be a bear, but there's no reason they shouldn't be favored.
What's the general fan response about the experience this year and this title?
The fan response, well, it's amazing, man. I compare what goes on here with Spurs and its fan base to a college. The only thing that I can think in pro sports, I think Green Bay and the Packers, that community up there, it goes Packers and God and family, probably in that order. And it's very much like a college. It's very much like LSU and their fans in Baton Rouge.
I feel that.
That's family, man. You know, and it's amazing that you can have a pro team with all these people from all over the country this year. So lots of tears, lots of beer, and lots of happiness, man.
Oh, that sounds awesome, man. Mike, thanks again so much for giving me some of your time. I really appreciate it, and I think our audience really appreciated getting that inside perspective. And like I said, man, anytime you need some intel, some insight, SEC, LSU, Saints, all rings, give me and Louisiana All American Sports a buzz, man. That was Mike Taylor of Ticket 760 in San Antonio.
Hey, Mike, we want to thank you. I know Eric thanked you, but I didn't have an opportunity to, and I just want to say thank you. Hey, man, big time show.
Hey, you're right. That's right. Shoot, you're playing with the big boys, baby. So Perry has some other news to share with us on the hardwood, moving down a level to where guys are not paid, although perhaps they should be.
Hey, the only reason why this is considered a hardwood story, Eric, is because the person who brought this lawsuit, who initiated this lawsuit, was Ed O'Bannon. But it actually includes all college athletes.
It's also hardwood because they're going in front of the judge.
Yes, Judge Claudia Wilkin will decide. This is day 10 of the Ed O'Bannon trial. And Ed O'Bannon is suing the NCAA. He and a number of other plaintiffs are suing the NCAA for using their image and likeness. It started out in a video game.
NCAA 95. Ed O'Bannon is a former college basketball star at UCLA. He won a championship with the Bruins. Had a high college profile, kind of flamed out in the pros, but that's why he is the lead in the suit.
And the NCAA refused to settle this, so now we are in court. It is day 10, and yesterday in court, Judge Wilkin asked, well, the NCAA, if your position is that you say paying the players will throw off the balance of the competition, competitive balance, then why aren't you giving the smaller schools any portions of this money?
It does kind of strain credulity if you're gonna have this theory that you don't allow payment to the players to encourage competitive balance. I think there needs to be some consistency across the board with that. As I said last week, my experience with the law is that it's mostly grounded in common sense, and there's just a lot of common sense stuff, and the judge just threw a big nugget out there. Well, then why isn't the wealth being spread more to the smaller schools that don't have a fight in the game, you know?
Right.
Don't have a stake in the game.
Right. So I have a couple of opinions there, Eric, on that. I think, one, yes, the smaller schools could benefit greatly from a greater revenue share,
right?
Increasing their facilities,
right?
Things of that nature.
Just like in Major League Baseball, you know, when you got small market teams like the Pirates remaining competitive, they share revenue.
Exactly. In the NBA as well.
Right. And the NFL with merchandising.
Yes.
You know.
So the other thing is, you can. NCAA, if that is your goal, to keep a competitive balance, then why don't you allow those smaller schools, regardless of size, to give the same number of scholarships that you allow those larger schools to give?
Right. I mean, the competitive balance doesn't sound very balanced here.
Right, it is not. And that is a bogus argument. And I think because of that, you'll see the NCAA, prior to Judge Wilkin rendering her decision, I think there's going to be a settlement here still, Eric.
They're crazy if they don't. This score right now, it's a landslide heading into the fourth quarter. I think the NCAA is going to experience what the Arkansas Razorbacks did in 95 with Ed O'Bannon dunking on them and hanging from the rim when this is all over with.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, the arrogance of the NCAA.
Yeah, and the thing is, public sentiment is not on their side anymore. In the 80s and 90s, I think we don't know, the public knows so much more now than we did even 10 years ago, let alone 30 years ago. And, it was easy to twist the public sentiment, especially with the resources at the disposal of the NCAA, for them to say, look, these kids are trying to exploit the system. We do this, we do that, we do this. But now you have Twitter, you have YouTube,
right.
You have a lot of cable, you have a lot of sports stations. You have ESPN 2, ESPN News, Fox Sports 2. The news is out. You're not hiding anything out there.
Sports,
So you have HBO, who gets really down to the nitty gritty. People are willing to. Even Sports Time has a regular platform now. Showtime has a regular platform.
Right.
You have people are going to talk, and information is going to get out there, and we can see a lot of the contradictions and the hypocrisy, really, of the NCAA. And like I said, this is based largely in common sense. They made a lot of money using the images and likenesses of these people without permission or compensation. NCAA needs to settle soon, or they're going to get the hammer brought down on them, or the gavel, whatever you call it.
Hey, man, look. Why don't you tell the folks what's coming up next, and as we go to break?
Sure. We have the one league that is always in the news 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that is the National Football League. We're going to discuss the Washington Redskins name controversy, a real blow stuck to Daniel Snyder and the National Football League's interests from the U.S. Patent Office. And we have, of course, it's summertime, so we have some news around the diamond for you. Just stay locked in, rip the knob off to 96.9 FM WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio. Area code 225-343-9927. Area code 225-343-9927. Give us a call. Talk to us here on Louisiana All American Sports on 96.9 FM WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio. So, before we launch on to the NFL story, we want to talk a little bit about the Diamond, as it is summertime. First and foremost, we had a profound loss in the baseball world, in the sports world last week. Tony Gwynn, a Hall of Fame first baseman for the San Diego Padres, died at the age of 54 last week from cancer of the salivary gland. He had been diagnosed 4 years ago. Gwynn attributed the cancer to his use of smokeless tobacco throughout his playing career. Tony Gwynn was one of the greatest contact hitters of all time. He was an everyman in every way. I mean, he was a roly-poly guy. There's no getting around that, but he could size up that ball and hit it like very few others in the history of the game. One of the good guys of baseball. Stayed with one franchise, the San Diego Padres, his entire career from 1982, if I recall, through 2001. Was part of two National League Championship pennant-winning Padres team in 1984 in an epic World Series against the Tigers, and in 1998 in a not-so-epic World Series against the New York Yankees. But Tony Gwynn, dead at the age of 54, there are only so many athletes to whom I feel a personal connection, but this guy is one. This is a man I really thought of as synonymous with baseball at that time, and he will be missed.
Truly one of the great guys, Eric.
Yeah.
Every time this guy came up to bat, you expected a hit. And
Right.
There's not too many people in that game that you can say that about.
No, they're not, and they're just the way his discipline at the plate was just legendary. And he was a guy, besides being a great player, he was a great, everything I heard about him was that he made himself accessible. He was one of the most accessible stars ever. He's beloved in San Diego. They put up a statue of Gwynn outside of Petco Park when it opened a few years ago. This is just, he's an example, Perry, of what is right with sports. We hear all the time, because bad news sells,
Right.
of athletes doing this and that. And the truth is, most of them are good guys who go to work, apply their trade, work really hard to get
That's
to where
right.
few can get. But bad news sells. I get that. That's part of the reason we have a forum.
Exactly.
But Tony Gwynn was one of the good guys. And,
was.
Jim Rome played a clip from an interview from Gwynn from 2007. And, it's funny because with free agency, some people took the low road to criticize him and say, well, does he really want a championship? Why is he staying in San Diego? He has no chance there. And first of all, he's part of 2 pennant-winning teams, so I don't, in the beginning and the end of his career, so I don't get that argument. But second, so they had a shot.
That's right.
Second of all, Tony Gwynn said, I like it in San Diego. I'm happy here. Why would I, to borrow a line from TLC, why would he go chasing waterfalls?
Well, but, I mean, in an era where organizations and companies aren't loyal to their employees,
right.
So employees are not loyal to their companies or organizations.
And with that,
this guy was.
Yeah, and with that kind of money, he had nobody would have blamed him. If in 98, 99, 2000, someone paid him a boatload of money to chase a title, maybe as a DH or something, but he did not do that.
Right.
And I think that speaks to his commitment to the San Diego community, to his team. I think that tells you his kind of family, his home orientation. Just a good guy, and he's really going to be missed. He was a commentator for a few ESPN games and MLB Network games. Sometimes commented on Fox during the World Series. He was just an asset to sports, an asset to baseball, and Tony Gwynn will truly be missed. Tony Gwynn, again, dead at the age of 54. So speaking of Major League Baseball, let's go ahead and talk about some of the statistical leaders. Speaking of great National League hitters, we'll start off with the National League batting leaders. Troy Tulowitzki is really pulling away right now with a 363 batting average in Colorado. He does have the advantage of playing in Denver, which helps, but he's up by his gap over Jonathan Lucroy, who's second in the NL in hitting with 338, and over Yasiel Puig at 324 is far more than that thin air would account for, but about 25 points greater. We actually, speaking of Major League Baseball and the National League, we have a guest on the line. We have our field correspondent, Brian in St. Louis. There we go.
Live from Busch Stadium.
Live from Busch Stadium. And we'll get him on the line and get our pregame report. Good morning. Oh, hang on. One more time. Sorry about that. Good morning.
Go ahead, Brian.
Terry, the Phillies have been in town since Thursday. They won the first game 4-1, won the second game, and in today's game, pitching for the Phillies is Cole Hamels, a 6'3", 195 pounder, left-handed, with a 2-3 record and a 2.78 ERA. Pitching for the Cardinals is Adam Wainwright, 6'7", 235-pound right-hander, with a 93 record with a 2.15 ERA. Should really be a good matchup here today at Busch Stadium.
Wow, it sounds like it, Brian. It sounds like it should be a great matchup, man. The Phillies are hot. They won 5 in a row, and now, the Cardinals are 5.5 games out of first place, and so it really should be a great game. I've just got one question for you, Brian. Tell me this, man. The African American in the lineup for the Cardinals, in what position is he batting today? Eric. Wow, did he hang up on us?
I think he threw us the deuces, Perry.
Wow, that's the second time he's done that, man.
All we did was ask, there are not as many black players as there used to be, so we like to, to try to keep all segments of the community engaged. We just want to know where the African-American player in the lineup was today, and he just pieced out on us.
Wow, man, he keeps doing that to us.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. Area code 225-343-9927. If you're an MLB fan, you get the joke. And if you're not, you'll get it eventually. 225-343-9927 to get in on the conversation with us. Thank you, Brian, from outside of Busch Stadium. I'll tell you, Cole Hamels on the mound. Philadelphia is not that great, but he's a tough out.
Hey, man, Adam Wainwright's on the mound for the Cardinals.
That's going to be a good battle.
So it should really be a great match.
That's going to be an entertaining game. That one might be the Fox game of the day. I didn't check the listings beforehand. Anyway, National League batting leaders, Troy Tulowitzki, again, with a 25-point lead at 363 over Jonathan Lucroy at 338. So even if you account for the thin air, Tulowitzki at shortstop is pulling way ahead in the NL batting race. Giancarlo Stanton is a budding superstar, in my opinion, and he leads the National League in home runs for the Miami Marlins with 20. Troy Tulowitzki, a shortstop, is second with 18 home runs for the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies have got great hitters. Their pitching is abysmal. Giancarlo Stanton also leading the NL in RBIs with 57. Second place is Paul Goldschmidt with 52. Ryan Howard, though, having a little second win in his career with 50 RBIs. He's third in the National League. He has only been so relevant the last year or two. Pitching, National League wins. Alfredo Simon of the Cincinnati Reds with 10. Adam Wainwright, we just mentioned, with 9. And Zach Greinke of the Los Angeles Dodgers with 9 also. ERA, Johnny Cueto of the Cincinnati Reds, as always, 1.92. His ERA is always way down. Adam Wainwright, 2.15 ERA, though. That's going to be a really good game, folks. If you like Major League Baseball, try to find that game on MLB Network or on one of the stations. That's going to be a good matchup. American League, Robinson Cano, so far earning every bit of that $280 million as he is leading the American League in batting average with a .337 average. Jose Altuve of the resurgent, and by resurgent, I mean not dead on arrival, Houston Astros at .336. Victor Martinez, DH for the Detroit Tigers at .328 and third, so there's a big gap there. Home runs, Edward Encarnacion of the Toronto Blue Jays leading with 23. Nelson Cruz of the Baltimore Orioles, second in the American League with 22 home runs. They better check him for those PEDs. He did it once before. Jose Abreu of the Chicago White Sox having a breakout year. 21 home runs so far in the AL. That's a lot of home runs. We're not even in July yet.
Right.
RBIs, no surprise, Edward Encarnacion with 62. I'm glad this guy's always been talented, and I'm glad to see him having a breakout year.
Encarnacion?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
man.
He was with
really...
the Cards for a hot second, was he?
He was.
Yeah, I thought so. I think he started his career there.
Yes.
Very talented guy. Nelson Cruz, 58 RBIs. Miguel Cabrera, the two-time American League MVP with 57 RBIs there. And the Oakland A's, who don't score a lot of runs, they do have two guys rounding out the top five in RBIs, Brandon Moss and Josh Donaldson. That's how a lot of pitching and a little hitting has gone a long way. American League pitching, Masahiro Tanaka's been worth every nickel of that Brinks truck that the Yankees backed out to that Japanese team to get him in. He has 11 wins. He is fun to watch. He just blows past the best of the best hitters. If you get a chance to see Tanaka pitch, I'm not even a Yankees fan, but he's something else.
And they had a great game last night against the Orioles.
Oh, yeah, man. That was another Japanese import. Hidoki Kuroda was holding him down. Now, I turned it off in the sixth when it was 2-1. Who won the game?
Former St. Louis Cardinal Carlos Beltran hit a game-winning walk-off home run.
No, okay, now I'm mad. Now I'm mad at myself. I went to go fry some chicken, and I got caught up in that, and then the game was over by the time I got back. Son of a gun, great game.
Yes.
Mark Burley, a very good control pitcher, is having a resurgent year with the Toronto Blue Jays, helping that team get back into the limelight. He has 10 wins in the American League. He's second behind Tanaka. ERA, Masahiro Tanaka with a 1.99 ERA. Scott Kazmir of the Oakland Athletics, who's also third in wins, by the way, in the AL, but he's second in ERA with a 2.08 ERA, and no surprise, King Felix third in the ERA chase in the American League with 2.22. Kazmir had a fantastic game last Saturday. I believe he's slated to pitch this weekend. Again, if you like baseball, he's worth seeing. In the bullpen, Greg Holland of the blazing hot Kansas City Royals with 21 saves. Fernando Rodney, who's just a machine, he gained a save last night. I saw a clip. He has 19 saves. He's second in the AL. K-Rod, talking about resurgences, he is leading the National League in saves for the Milwaukee Brewers with 24. He's looking as strong as he did in 2008 when he set the record for saves in a season with the LA Angels. Craig Kimbrell of the Atlanta Braves with 21 saves. Houston Street with 20 saves for the San Diego Padres. He's tied for third place with Kenley Jansen of the Los Angeles Dodgers and Trevor Rosenthal of the St. Louis Cardinals. But the difference is Jansen and Rosenthal play for winning teams in division races. Houston Street plays for one of the worst teams in the National League, yet he has 20 saves. That tells you how valuable he is. If San Diego could just muster a way to get to the ninth inning, there ain't going to be a ninth inning when Houston Street is pitching. And finally, in WAR, wins above replacement, Josh Donaldson, first in the AL with 4.7 WAR, ahead of Mike Trout with 4.5, and Troy Tulowitzki way in front in the National League, wins above replacement at 5.2. Division leaders. We have the Toronto Blue Jays, a game and a half in front of the New York Yankees, and 3.5 games in front of Baltimore in the American League East. In the AL Central, the Detroit Tigers finally they've won 2 games in a row. They've
went off a little bit.
Yeah, they have cooled off substantially. They had a good gap at the start of the year, and the Kansas City Royals, as of Friday morning, had wrestled it away, had a half-game lead on the Tigers. Now they flip-flop. The Tigers do this every year, though, man. They just, it's almost like they're complacent from their own talent, and they wait to turn it on, but they better turn it on now because they have competition.
They don't have the championships that the Spurs have, but the Detroit Tigers are always in contention.
Right, they get the talent in, man. They have a little weakness in that bullpen. They need to watch that. They're going to have to make some trades to shore that up because KC has an inroad there. Cleveland 3 games back, and somehow, miraculously, the White Sox and Twins are not out of it 5 games back. The Oakland Athletics starting to pull away in the American League West, 6 games ahead of the Los Angeles Angels.
Angels would still be in the playoffs, Eric, if they started today.
That's correct. They would get one of those final 2 wild card spots along with the New York Yankees. In the National League, in the East, Atlanta and Washington trading blows. Excuse me. Yesterday morning, the Nationals were a half game ahead of the Braves. Saturday morning, the Braves are a half game ahead of the Nationals, and the Miami Marlins are right there, just 1 game back, in spite of losing Jose Fernandez for the season.
That NL East is going to be a great race down to the wire.
It sure is. And the Phillies aren't dead. They're 3.5 back, but
and they've won 5 in a row.
Well, they have. They're on fire. I just don't. I think they're a little long in the tooth to keep up through September, but they're still right there.
The pitching's coming along pretty well.
It sure is. They got some ballers on the hill for that team, and some young relievers. I like where that team is going. They need to replace some old guys in that lineup, though. It will get in the National League Central, the Milwaukee Brewers, and we have a story about them shortly. They are 5.5 games ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals in the East. The Cardinals, though, as Perry pointed out to me yesterday, would be in the playoffs of the season. Would end today. They'd have a 1-game playoff at Dodger Stadium against the Dodgers had the season ended today. In the National League West, the San Francisco Giants, who were just running, I mean, it was ridiculous. They were on fire. They had a winning percentage around 700 not too long ago. They've lost 6 straight and have allowed the LA Dodgers, who got off to a mediocre start, to pick up, and the Dodgers are just 4 games back of the San Francisco Giants. The last place in the NL West are the Arizona Diamondbacks, 13 games back. I'm going to call a time of death for them already, but one of the fun things about baseball sometimes is when you have nothing to lose, you can do anything you want to.
Do anything you want.
And that is exactly what happened in the land of the sun earlier this week. The Milwaukee Brewers just have some bad blood with a lot of teams. They had a nice bench clearing brawl. There we go.
Man, something going on today with the language guys.
She sees seashells by the seashore. There we go. Okay. They had a bench clearing brawl with the Pirates. We thought maybe there was rum in the clubhouse instead of beer. That might not have been the case, though, because there's more balls flying. In Arizona, let me give you guys some background. 2011 playoffs, the Milwaukee Brewers and Arizona Diamondbacks met in the first round. The series, a great series, went to 5 games. The Milwaukee Brewers took it in a walk-off fashion in Game 5, advanced to the NLCS. Well, on top of all that, they lost eventually to the St. Louis Cardinals. But on top of all that, Ryan Braun, who was the former National League Most Valuable Player, was busted for performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs. He was originally had a positive test. He appealed, though, so he was never suspended. He got in front of the camera, said, "I'll bet my life that this is not in my system," and threw everyone under the bus and threw this.
Told his best friend Tom Brady that.
Right. No way. Yeah, and a lot of other folks too that he burned some bridges there. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers, one of his buddies, said, "Oh no, it's not me." And Aaron Rodgers stood up for him and said, "Ryan Braun's a man of integrity." Well, I'll tell you, men lie, women lie, and numbers don't. And Ryan Braun, I can't get it right today anyway.
Something with the enunciation, guys.
Ryan Braun was lying through his teeth. As it turned out later, the Major League Baseball did collect some evidence further. They had to finally go to the source of the PEDs, and they did, in fact, pretty much nail Ryan Braun with the smoking gun, and he confessed to it, got a 62-game suspension last year. It really made a lot of people mad. If Braun had been truthful, if justice worked the way, quote-unquote, it should have, he would have been suspended for that series with the Diamondbacks, which was very close. Maybe the Diamondbacks advanced to the NLCS that year. Kirk Gibson, the manager of the Diamondbacks, was still the manager that year. He has not let it go. He's been publicly outspoken against Ryan Braun, who went as far to throw the specimen collector under the bus and call him anti-Semitic. And Ryan Braun has been public enemy number 1 everywhere outside of Milwaukee. Pitches have thrown at him. People don't really, he has been public enemy number 1. So what has happened? So in the 8th inning of a close game between the Diamondbacks and the Brewers, score was 5-3, and 2 runners were on. Ryan Braun came up to bat. Relief pitcher Evan Marshall threw a fastball, went behind Ryan Braun, had to dodge out of the way. The umpire warned him for throwing too close. Ryan Braun then on the next pitch was plunked pretty hard with a fastball. The umpire immediately threw Marshall out of the game, and As Marshall's walking off, he gets a fist bump from Kirk Gibson. He's getting high-fived in the clubhouse. So clearly this beating was on purpose.
Kirk Gibson is the manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Correct. They bring in the true closer, Brad Ziegler. Bases loaded, and what happens? Karma spits in their eye as Jonathan Lucroy blasted a grand slam, giving the Brewers the lead and taking the win on Tuesday night. Kirk Gibson was asked after the game about the beating. He said, quote, "I'm not going to comment on that. You've been around this game long enough." So this is an ongoing thing. And this isn't the first time Braun's gotten a little pepper, but the Diamondbacks put an exclamation point on the message here.
They did, man. And, you know, as you read that story, as I was made aware of this story, I could not think of anything else but Bounty Gate and the New Orleans Saints. You know, you have to think that the pitcher received more than just a hand bump.
Oh, yeah, I think Evan Marshall got a little Ben Franklin.
Right.
Or two, or three, you know.
And I just don't know if Major League Baseball is supportive enough of Ryan Braun to investigate this.
Well, you know, he's been thrown at a lot this year. This is probably one of the more glaring incidents. But you know, you can't have a circus in your show. I mean, eventually, even if you never forgive the guy, enough is enough after a while, and you have a game to put on.
Right.
And at what point does Bud Selig step in and say enough is enough?
Exactly.
Or does he? You know,
Major League Baseball commissioner, former owner of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Correct.
You know, so I just think that Major League Baseball is so upset with Ryan Braun, Alex Rodriguez, the latest round of PED participants.
and the arrogance that's gone with, particularly those two guys, that's gone along with it. Nelson Cruz, for example, took his whooping, took his suspension, came back, he's playing ball, for example. You know?
Right, exactly right. They took no ownership of this thing.
Right.
And I don't think they have any friends in Major League Baseball office.
Right.
So there may not be an investigation.
Right. You know, and at some point, you know, Braun might appeal to the players' union, and whether they like, and he does not have any friends there, but whether they like him or not, he pays his dues. They have a duty to protect their members, including Lion Braun. So I don't know what they're going to do with Lion, but this isn't going away, and you're going to see some more instances like this. I really want to see where this concludes.
Yeah.
225-343-9927, area code 225-343-9927. College World Series going on. We'll just want to get you briefed on that really quick.
Two SEC teams still alive.
That's right. Vanderbilt and the Ole Miss Rebels are still alive. The Ole Miss Virginia game was suspended until this afternoon at 1 o'clock our time. 2 o'clock Central Time, rather, due to foul weather. But that series is at 0-0. The winner, of course, will advance on.
No, that series is 1-0 Virginia. If Virginia wins today's game, it's over.
Oh, that's a 1-0. So,
Yes.
Okay, all right. Did not.
Ole Miss is playing for their life today.
Did not realize. Thank you for the update. I did not realize that. Appreciate that. I must have had a dated bracket here. In the other matchup, we have the Texas. You're right. That's an elimination game. I apologize. You're absolutely right. Texas and Vanderbilt. The loser of that game will play the winner of Ole Miss, Virginia. And Texas is looking awfully strong. But big props to Ole Miss. They knocked out a TCU team that was strong. They were ranked number 3 in the country, I believe, at one point. So SEC is representing there. Commodores and Rebels. You're not going to hear me say this very often, but go Rebels, go Commodores. Highty-tighty. Yeah. Anyway.
Balance of power.
Absolutely. Go at SEC. I'm telling you, Perry. If baseball, they're as much of a beast in football. It's just they don't get the ink in baseball like in football. So we'll see who'll sign. Thank you for telling me. I told you so about the Ole Miss bracket. We want to keep our listeners with the most accurate information up to speed. And so after Perry told me I told you so, here's some more other instances of I told you so in our regular.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
Right. Okay, so talk to us, man. Now, you originally picked.
I picked the Miami Heat in 6. That is definitely not happening no matter what. And if I given the opportunity, the benefit of hindsight to readjust, I'm going to say Spurs in 5. I think they wrap it up on Sunday night.
I don't think this series is over yet. I think the rumors of the Heat demise has been greatly exaggerated. Here's that's the good news.
Right.
The bad news is ultimately the Miami Heat are going to be the runner-up here, and the Miami Heat are the two-time champions. I think they win tomorrow. I think they win in Miami and force a Game 7 here and make all NBA fans happy.
No.
It's just this story gets weirder and weirder. You know, it reminds me of an old song by MC8 of Compton's Most Wanted. It was the 1994 solo album, We Come Strapped. It was called I'ma Take Two With Me. Now, it's a gangster song. I can't quote lyrics.
I'm impressed, Eric.
Oh, man, that was good old stuff.
MC8?
Oh, yeah, I liked him.
I wanted to commend Eric for being quite metaphoric today, using the analogy of a mildew shower towel. and also for his reference to MC8 and Compton's Most Wanted, We Come Strapped.
I'm the racist.
I think there'll be another blowout that's in the making right now.
And where would that blowout be?
That blowout would be the Miami Heat getting blown out by the San Antonio Spurs.
So you're thinking that Sunday's the last game as well?
Yeah.
Harry, something just occurred to me. You realize in about 90 seconds we have coming up here on WHYR, Noel Jackson with Music Satisfaction. Coming up in just 13 minutes here on WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio, 96.9 FM. Noel Jackson.
Music
Satisfaction. So,
hey man, just one quick clarification. The loser of the Texas Vanderbilt game today is eliminated. The winner goes on to the championship. Actually, no. If Vandy wins, then they have a game 3 tomorrow.
right, they'd have to play the Longhorns again.
Yeah, so they're down to the Final Four in the College World Series. Now that we have that cleared up, let's move on to the gridiron.
All righty, and a lot of news this week in the National Football League. Earlier this week, the United States Patent Office revoked 6 trademarks of the Washington Redskins. The name Redskins, and I believe certain variations of it. They did not revoke the logo trademark, but the name itself, the Patent Office said, was disparaging to Native Americans, and so patent protection was withdrawn from the name Redskins. There's been a lot of controversy really building up over the last year, 2 years, over the name Redskins being kind of a slur against Native Americans. It's popped up in little nuggets once or twice every decade or so, but this time it seems to really have some steam. There was an ad during Game 4 of the NBA Finals from a Native American conglomerate organization, saying, we're people, we're not a mascot.
Right.
The name Redskins is, it is disparaging, and this is starting to build up steam. And I don't think this one's going away. I think this is the last dance for Hail to the Redskins.
I agree, Eric. Well, Dan Snyder is holding on. He reminds me of the NCAA. He refuses to face reality here. And devaluing. Let me explain what the Patent Office did. What they did is they devalued that name, that term. So now you can see other people creating merchandise with that on that. Now, hopefully we won't see that.
Right.
However, it does devalue it.
Let's face facts. We know how the world works, and I promise you there were some people in China who high-fived each other or whatever celebration they use over there as soon as they heard that news, because some cheap Redskin shirts are coming overseas.
Because, that's what they do. They reproduce intellectual property.
Right.
So, man, this is just... Eric, I've got an idea. I think we should launch a campaign. It's maybe too late in the show today.
Right.
But maybe an ongoing campaign receiving suggestions from our listening audience on what that team should be named.
That's right. I think we should have a little Louisiana All American Sports contest. You can tweet us at LAA Sports. That's LA for Louisiana. Or strike that L for Louisiana, A for all, and the other A for American Sports. LAA Sports. Tweet at us your suggestions for what you think the Washington Redskins mascot should be changed to, if in fact Dan Snyder eventually, and I think he will, changes the name of Redskins to something a little less offensive to Native Americans.
Yes. Now, my broadcast partner, man, enunciation. He has some ideas. regarding the name of this team, and I want you to share that with the listening audience.
Yeah, I've thought about this for months, that the perfect name change for this name change would be perfect on a number of levels for the Washington Redskins. Why not change the name to the Washington Americans? It captures so many different angles of this team and that town and this story. First of all, the team is currently named after, is supposed to be honoring Native Americans, the Americans who were here before all of us, be it voluntarily or involuntarily. They are as American as anybody.
That's
that
right.
captures them, that honors them. It also brings us all together as opposed to dividing us, because we are all Americans here in America.
All right.
Washington, D.C. is the nation's capital, so what could be more fitting than a name like Americans in the capital of America? In addition, it fits the mold. It really, with every, except for the basketball team, it fits the framework of both past and present sports franchises. The baseball team is the Nationals. The hockey team is the Washington Capitals. There was a baseball team that actually had two stints there, called the Senators. Two different franchises, same name, the Washington Senators. So there is a real history of Americanism in the franchise names in Washington, D.C. So I personally think Washington Americans would be perfect. You'd have a red jersey, white helmet with an American flag right on the side. I think that'd be bueno, but that's just my 2 cents.
I love it, man. I think it's appropriate for that area, that region, and you turn a negative into a positive, and you still keep the logo the same.
Right.
You know, still honor those folks.
Well, you could do that. Yeah. That's right. And I mean, the Washington Redskins, I mean, the Redskins logo was not rescinded, and I don't think there's anything disrespectful about that. It's an Indian in a dignified pose with his native garb on. I can't speak for Native Americans, but I'd imagine that wouldn't be considered offensive. I wouldn't think so.
I mean, there's no offense to the Braves, to the Chiefs, to the Seminoles.
Right. Absolutely, yes. And like we discussed this a little bit yesterday. It's a whole different story. You take the Chiefs. A chief is a leader. It's a proud, noble man, a warrior. There's support for that mascot there. The Braves, that is a young warrior. The Seminoles, that is a tribe, and they have been very much in tune. In contact and communication with the approval of the Seminole Nation. They donate to the Seminole Nation. There's a big difference between that and Redskins. It's like saying the colored people, okay? It's like saying that word that implies water on one's back that I'm not going to say on the radio. It's like saying a certain kind of wood that I'm not going to say on the radio.
But to that point, Eric, and I think this is what convolutes the conversation, is that, there are some words that we refuse to say, but yet we seem very comfortable saying that term, the name of that team.
Right.
And that's part of the issue.
Right.
So we have to, as a society, say, if that is offensive to you, we're not going to say that.
Right. And I'm so tired of the two arguments. I'm tired. One argument I'm going to shoot down real quick. It's the Fox News argument. I'm tired of the government stepping in and telling people what to do. Actually, Mr. Fox News guy, the government is patent protection is government involvement. It stops people from using your intellectual property. So the government is stepping out of it. Free markets, Mr. Fox guy. That's less government involvement. So pow, 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 pow. That's the end of that. Second of all, the other one is, they've been called the Redskins.
Since the
1930s, it's tradition. Well, the country has changed. First of all, I think the connotation of that name has changed. I think it's far more out of the mainstream now than it was in the 1930s. I personally think it was a little slurish back then, but we lived in a time where, frankly, it was acceptable by the masses to be insensitive to other people who are in the minority.
We are a better society.
Right, exactly.
And as a good friend said to me this week, when you know better, you do better.
That's right. We are a society that as a whole, I believe, at least I sincerely hope so by now, puts a value on the dignity and puts respects other people's ethnic heritages. And this name is clearly, it's Redskins. It's not that hard, folks. It's not a reach. It's Redskins. It ought to be bleeped out on the air, but it's patently offensive. And I think, it doesn't affect me directly, but with each passing year, I get less and less comfortable being following so religiously a sport with a team with that name in it.
Yes, we're all intertwined, and you qualified it with directly, but it does affect all of us.
Right.
So just I hope that the NFL steps up and tells Dan Snyder that, hey, look, you're bringing unwanted negative attention. We have enough issues.
You know,
the NFL does.
Yeah. Look, I'm a cynic. You know, you want to sit up here and use insensitive language to give names to teams. How about this, Dan Snyder? Dan Snyder is of Jewish descent. How about Dan Snyder take something that's disparate, that's ugly to folks who are like him? Why don't you change the name to something that's not a profanity, but not exactly nice? Let's call your team the Shylocks for 5 years and put some negative stereotype, some negative image. And, and you stick with that for 5 years. And if you do that, if you walk the walk, talk the talk, keep your Redskins, I'm willing to bet you Mr. Snyder would not be willing to do that with his own property. And that's never going to happen, but that's a very cynical way of saying what's good for the goose should be good for the gander.
Hey,
you know?
Hey, we are a better society than that.
We have some briefs?
Yes, we do, man. Devin Clark, former Southern Lab player, former Northside High head basketball coach with 2 state championships, was hired Tuesday to coach his alma mater, Southern University Lab School. So he'll be the new head coach there. Also from the World Cup, man, we've got the United States team that beat Ghana in Group G. And
finally.
Yeah, finally. And right now they are tied with Germany atop of that grouping. And they have a very important game tomorrow against Portugal.
That is crucial because if they don't win that game or at least tie, they're going to be in a must-win situation against Germany, which is not good for the Americans.
Hey, man, they've already exceeded expectations.
That's right. Finally, they didn't lose to Ghana. Ghana defeated the United States both in 2006 and in 2010. Real quick, just go Google Jim Rome Show USA Ghana. There's a very funny, blubbering fan on there who takes his soccer seriously, if you want to laugh.
And also, the USA Baseball Collegiate National Team welcomed on Friday 29 of college baseball's top underclassmen, including shortstop Alex Bregman of LSU and Louisiana Lafayette's Blake Trahan as the squad opened training camp at USA Basketball National Training Complex.
That's pretty awesome. Good for those guys. We have some really talented Louisiana athletes. So we've actually gotten to the finish line with about 2 minutes to go. Perry, I guess any parting shots, or maybe we should leave the room for Noel earlier.
Yeah, man. Let's get out of Noel's way, man. There is maybe you know the guy's name, but an LSU pitcher who was recently drafted pitched 7 innings in AAA for Boston.
This was something on the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember. There's somebody who pitched recently, but always good to see those Tigers balling out. Stepping up. They got some there. I tell you, SEC, LSU, and the SEC have got some talent in baseball. It's just college baseball doesn't get the pub that of course football or basketball will.
Let's get the outro going, man, and get out of Noel's way.
Yep. So like we always say around this time,
ADT, JNS, love you.
Have a good afternoon.
Hail to the king and lots of love. May he protect us from the evil. Hail to the king, lots of love.